Sergio Leone asked me to do a film and sent me the script, and I just couldn't believe it. And I met him, had lunch with him, and I hadn't seen his early films, so I didn't know Sergio Leone's reputation. And he realized I hadn't seen him, so he arranged for a screening, and I saw about 3.5 hours of his early films with Clint Eastwood. And one of them involved an actor friend of mine, and I called him, and he said, "Don't miss it, just go."
Back in 1947, the desert heat of Monument Valley wasn't the only thing that made the production of Ford Apache unbearably difficult. Behind the cameras, two of Hollywood's biggest stars, Henry Fonda and John Wayne, found themselves embroiled in an intense and surprising clash that would go down in Hollywood history. Ford Apache, the first film in John Ford's Calvary trilogy, seemed destined to be a masterpiece, but it was also a production riddled with tension, frustration, and some very raw emotions. And at the heart of that tension was a complicated relationship between Fonda, Wayne, and their legendary director, John Ford. Ford, as we all know, was a genius filmmaker, but not exactly known for his bedside manner. Known for his gruff demeanor and exacting standards, Ford had a reputation for pushing his actors to the brink, using his temper and sometimes harsh methods to extract performances that he felt were worthy of his vision. It was a style that worked for some, but not for everyone. Fonda, an actor with deep respect for the craft, had a particular set of principles when it came to acting. He didn't mind hard work, but he hated being treated like a puppet, like his ideas didn't matter. And on the set of Ford Apache, it became clear that Ford didn't give much room for his actors to collaborate. In fact, Ford would often flat out ignore or shut down any suggestions or ideas that his actors had. If Fonda wanted to talk through a scene or ask a question, Ford would often dismiss him with a sharp "shut up" or simply change the subject. This didn't sit well with Henry Fonda, who had spent years honing his craft and building a career based on his thoughtful, methodical approach to acting. He wanted to engage, to discuss the motivations behind his character, and to understand the emotional beats of the story. But Ford's attitude was that everything should be instinctual, fast, and direct. If Fonda had an emotional take on a scene, Ford wasn't interested in discussing it. He just wanted to move on and get it done.
Now that I pointed out, is there anything you'd like to say about it?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Can I ask you what particular element about the Western appealed to you from the beginning?
I wouldn't know.
Would you agree that the point of Ford Apache was that the tradition of the Army was more important than one individual?
Cut.
Fonda found this incredibly frustrating, and to say it made him uncomfortable would be an understatement. In fact, it often made him so furious that he'd have to walk away, which was rare for an actor known for his calm demeanor. Things took an even more tense turn when John Wayne entered the picture. Wayne, ever the quintessential tough guy, had an entirely different relationship with Ford. They were old friends, colleagues who had worked together for years, and Wayne was more than used to Ford's unconventional methods. For Wayne, it was all part of the process. He didn't mind Ford's insults or his constant pressure. It was just the way Ford worked. Wayne had built his career around this tough guy persona, and Ford's no-nonsense approach seemed to suit him perfectly. So when Fonda, a much more reserved actor, was clearly growing more and more agitated, Wayne could see the tension building between his co-star and the director. But Wayne wasn't just a bystander in all this. Despite his long-standing friendship with Ford, Wayne did try to step in and help Fonda in his own way, though it wasn't always in the most empathetic manner. When Fonda's frustration reached its peak, Wayne would often try to step in with a bit of humor or even physical support to ease the situation. However, it was clear that Wayne didn't completely understand Fonda's sensitivity to the bullying atmosphere Ford had created. For Wayne, it was a tough love kind of thing, but for Fonda, it was pure emotional exhaustion. And there was one moment on set that made it all boil over. Fonda was reduced to tears. It wasn't just Ford's behavior, it was the whole toxic atmosphere of the set. The blazing sun, the constant dust storms, and the relentless demands of a director who didn't care to treat his actors as equals. Everything seemed to be weighing down on Fonda. And then there was the sheer physical toll the production took on the cast. Monument Valley's conditions weren't just uncomfortable, they were brutal. Ford would often berate his actors, making them do scene after scene in the harsh desert heat with little regard for their well-being. Fonda had had enough, and at one point the pressure became too much. He was so upset that he stormed off set, overwhelmed by the bullying and the unbearable working conditions.
Not really. I'm not interested in them now, actually. It's a way of making a living. No, oh, I don't know. Occasionally go to movies, and I wasn't what you call an aficionado or anything like that.
I suspect that a lot of your scripts are very improvised, and I believe that one of the arch exponents of this was Will Rogers. Can you tell me about him?
In that moment, Ford had pushed him so far that Fonda couldn't contain his frustration anymore. Michael Wayne, John Wayne's son, was on the set at the time. He recalled the emotional scene when he saw Fonda walking away in tears. For a veteran actor like Fonda to be reduced to this kind of emotional state spoke volumes about just how taxing the whole experience was. But it also showed the depth of Fonda's discomfort with Ford's toxic leadership style. Even though Ford's genius as a filmmaker was undeniable, the personal toll he inflicted on his actors was starting to take its toll on Fonda in ways that couldn't be ignored. Yet despite all of this, Fonda and Wayne had to keep going. They were both seasoned professionals, and in the end, they pushed through to complete the film. Fonda knew that at the end of the day, this was a John Ford film, and no matter how much he disliked the process, it was still going to be something legendary. And for Wayne, this was just another day working with Ford, a director who was brilliant but often downright unbearable to work with. Even though they didn't agree on much, both Fonda and Wayne had a deep respect for Ford's filmmaking abilities. Fonda knew that Ford's unique methods often led to incredible performances, and Wayne admired Ford's genius as a director, even if it meant enduring the harshest of treatment. In the end, Ford's genius could not be denied, but the emotional cost on his actors, especially Fonda, was significant. Fort Apache would go on to be a classic, but the behind-the-scenes drama between Fonda, Wayne, and Ford was a reminder of the sacrifices and emotional toll that come with being a part of such a monumental film. The legacy of Fort Apache became more than just the movie itself. It became a part of the lore of Hollywood, the tough, demanding director, the iconic stars, and the emotional battlefield that unfolded on the set. Fonda's frustration was one of the darker sides of the film, but it also showcased the immense pressure placed on actors during that era. It wasn't just the work, it was the emotional cost of it all. While Fort Apache may have marked a critical turning point in Fonda's relationship with Ford, it didn't ruin his career, it just reshaped it. Fonda would go on to continue his remarkable journey in Hollywood, though he never forgot the lessons learned on that difficult set. And Wayne, ever the loyal friend to Ford, would continue to work with the director for many years, learning to accept his methods as part of the process. As for Ford, he remained unfazed by the emotional fallout from his actors. For him, it was all about the final product, and in the end, he got what he wanted, a film that would be remembered as one of the great westerns in cinema history. But for Fonda and Wayne, it was a reminder of the personal sacrifices that go into making a movie that stands the test of time.